So, just like last time, I'd like to make a shout out. In my previous video, I went over the importance of Sonic 3 Knuckles as a pioneer to lore within the canon of Sonic. This initial instance was based around Angel Island, the Chaos Emeralds, and most importantly, Knuckles' pivotal role for a story deeper than the previous beat the bad guy scenario that the Sonic series was primarily starting out as. Now, for a far, and I mean far, more in-depth look at Sonic the Hedgehog lore, narrative, and furthermore gameplay and other details, I recommend that you all give Shay May a look. He's a YouTuber who takes a very inquisitive look at video gaming, and his by far most impressive project has got to be a series, Sonic Spitballing. To be brief, it's a very ambitious and critical look at Sonic the Hedgehog as a character, a franchise, and an icon. Minus the, by this point, almost obligatory jabs and jeers at Sonic that one usually has to deal with for discussions like these. If you've got 3.5 hours that you don't mind spending for a highly intellectual, entertaining, and at some points almost worrisome look at Sonic, then look no further than this. Unless he's finally done part 3, in which case you'll probably need like 5 hours. Now then, shall we begin? When I say the name Silver the Hedgehog, what comes to mind? I suppose that most people would come to the immediate association with Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, with a minor, oh yeah, to some spin-off titles. And I really couldn't blame you for that. For all intents and purposes, he was a bit of a one-and-done kind of character in terms of importance to the Sonic adventures, to the Sonic Chronicles, the Sonic Tales, the stories, the Sonic stories, yeah. But what if I told you that Silver the Hedgehog is probably one of the most important Sonic characters aside from the poster boy himself, and also one of the most unfortunate? Now, what if I told you that there's more than one of him? So let's start off where Silver did. Sonic 06 was a bit of a soft reset to the Sonic series. It wasn't necessarily erasing and restarting the entirety of the franchise, but some things did get the axe for the sake of the story that it had to tell. For example, Shadow worked for the Guardian Unit of Nations, the Chaos Emeralds were a local treasure of Soliana that Eggman wanted to pillage, and Knuckles apparently didn't have any Master Emerald obligations, and so on and so forth. But, interestingly enough, Sonic 06 also included a retelling of the backstory of Blaze the Cat from the 2005 title Sonic Rush. Originally, she was a princess of a parallel dimension, one with a counterpart likeness to both the Chaos Emeralds and Dr. Eggman from Sonic's dimension. However, come Sonic 06, and this character was completely reworked, serving more as a mentor and fighting companion to the new character, Silver the Hedgehog. Silver the Hedgehog was born into a forsaken future, one that was wrecked by a disaster that began long before his time and the time of those around him. This disaster goes by the name of Iblis, an immortal being solely bent on wreaking havoc and carnage and destruction in general. Silver, being the protagonist of his time, fights a never-ending battle against Iblis with Blaze by his side. After yet another empty victory, the two decide to investigate the impossible, stopping Iblis from ever having been created. This brings them to Mephiles, who tells them of Sonic the Hedgehog, the Iblis Trigger, and thus their job to kill him. At the mention of his name, Blaze shows either a distinct intrigue or faint familiarity with the Blue Hedgehog, but nothing substantial comes out of it. She never encounters Sonic in the story, so perhaps this is just the writers merely alluding to her Rush iteration. Anyway, fast forward to the plot of Sonic 06, and it's revealed that it's not necessarily Sonic himself who was/would be the Iblis Trigger, more on that in a sec, but rather the event of his death, an inevitable factor of his life, thus rendering the entire time travel mission as a mere farce. However, the adventure did bring to light one last-ditch measure for Silver to defeat Iblis once and for all. By using Iblis' immortality against him, they'll seal him away inside of a new vessel, the previous one having been the royal blood of Princess Elise. In a particularly emotional final scene, Silver and Blaze begin their last act to save the world, choosing to seal Iblis within Silver and then proceeding to banish his soul from their reality. So when Silver's body is rejected, Blaze steps up to the helm and takes on Iblis instead. She seals Iblis inside of her and then wipes herself from existence. And so, Silver's story ends. But then it doesn't. Mephiles, revealed to be the bad guy, kills Sonic back in the present, assuming that Silver's time is future. thus erasing all the good of Silver and Blaze's deed. Furthermore, Mephiles merges with a newborn Iblis of this time to become Solaris, the temporal destroyer of time. This creates a huge crack in the time flow into which the entire cast of the game falls into, time displacement disregarded. This means that the Silver that fell in comes from the future, rather than the present, and thus Blaze has already been banished in an act of now fruitless labor. So when all the hedgehogs go super, Amy not included, and destroy Solaris, Sonic and Elise come to the birth of time, and a final farewell to all that has occurred. Elise blows out Solaris' flame, forever erasing it, Mephiles, Iblis, and all of their associations away from existence. And thus, the Flames of Disaster never happened. And furthermore, neither did Silver. But some things about the future just refuse to change. Enter Sonic Rivals, a spin-off title that made a stealthy appearance on the PlayStation Portable. And this game is responsible for the reintroduction of Silver into the original Sonic canon. That is to say, the canon predating the changes of Sonic 06. As a brief summary, Sonic Rivals is about how Dr. Eggman has taken up a new interest in card collecting. He turns objects and characters into cards. And now he's set his eyes on turning the entire world into a card. It's up to Sonic to stop him. But wait, Knuckles has a bone to pick with Eggman too, because he's turned the Master Emerald into a card and, well, that's no good. But wait! Shadow's got a message from Dr. Eggman himself, and he's pleading for help. But he's making no note of neither Sonic nor Knuckles, but rather something else. More on that in a sec. Because... But wait! Silver, of all people, shows up, encountering all the characters and making it known that he has a date with Eggman too. And it simply cannot wait. And so, between our four heroes, it'll be a date to die for. Or to just race around for, I guess. We'll start this theory by once again briefly bringing things back to Sonic Rush, or rather, Sonic Rush's villain. I previously mentioned that Blaze's dimension had an Eggman counterpart. Well, this character is not native to her dimension. Meet Eggman Nega. He has no interest in conquering the world, but just its imminent destruction, much to Eggman Regular's dismay. He has come from the new future, one in which Eggman has been able to have a next of kin, and furthermore a lineage, due to having not died to the Flames of Disaster. This Eggman is far more calculating, far more conniving, far more multi-dimensionally aware than Eggman Regular. However, his most distinguishing trait is how borderline insane he is. For reference, in Sonic Rush Adventure, he's quoted as saying, "I shall bring about an age of fear and chaos, and it shall be glorious." So, unable to do so in his current time, that being Silver's time, he fled the future to Sonic's time, to escape Silver's jurisdiction, and to start his plans to wreak havoc under the guise of his great-great-grandfather. Silver stops him, yes, but in Rivals 2, he's back in full force. This time, Silver doesn't see it coming. Eggman Nega summons the destructive fire beast known as Ifrit, not to be confused with Iblis. And so, by sacrificing the lives of numerous Chao, he makes it invincible. The Ifrit makes short work of the world, and so we find Silver born into an all-too-familiar scenario. And this time, he's all alone. So, cue Silver going back in time to save his own, thus repeating the history that never was. Silver, alongside the efforts of the previous game's cast, hides away the Chao and manages to defeat the Ifrit. This time, however, instead of bringing Eggman Nega back to his proper time, he leaves him in the voided realm from whence the beast came, to prevent any more attempts at destroying the world. And as time begins to rewrite itself yet again, all Silver can do is hope that the future is truly safe now. But if time is true to tell, then we can expect another disaster to rear its head. So, from what we've seen here, Silver the Hedgehog seems to live a cursed existence. He's a victim of an unwavering prophecy, and no matter which form of canon he's birthed into, it's always an apocalyptic fate. And whenever he goes back in time and succeeds at preventing the future's demise, he is completely erased from the unraveling of time's flow, and then reborn into a new scenario. He may be chasing a different source, but he's ultimately fighting the same destiny. I don't even have to go in depth with the Archie Comics canon to tell you that he's fighting the same battle of a ruined future, because he is, and he always will be. He's stuck in a loop, a static cycle that won't not happen. And he doesn't even know it, since his interaction is a core factor of that cycle. So with all this information of Silver being from some destined to be destroyed form of the future, why do we constantly see him just hanging out in Sonic's time? Be it at the Olympics, a Grand Prix, or an interstellar amusement park, he's just there. Doesn't he have a responsibility, a future to protect and or rebuild? Yes. Yes, he does. You see, in the canon of Sonic 06, Silver became aware that what's done in the past is irrevocable, and that there's only one way to deal with the destruction, and it's just that, to deal with it. So, Silver went out to Iblis, armed with this knowledge that he gained back in Sonic's time, and turned his cycle into an event. No longer returns to zero, but a trip from beginning to end. A sudden disaster, and then a slow rise from the ashes. But after what happened at the birth of time, that Silver is gone now, and with him his answer to saving the future. So once more, we're back to a cycle. We're back to zero. And now we never get to see what Silver's new future is. Just the sense that he'll eventually go back to ruin. Whereas the legacy and lore of Knuckles is a look into the legends and tragedies of the civilizations of yesteryear, Silver's is a look into the terrors of the future. And while in Sonic Colors DS he does say that the sky is blue and everyone's got a smile, we don't know if this iteration of Silver is talking about a future with a successful rebuild after the ruinous event, or worse, one before the event has even struck. Either way, him being here and not there has some serious implications. Could this mean that Silver is running away from his time, refusing fate itself to try to live out his life somewhere else? Somewhere more peaceful? For whatever purpose that he's doing this, in merely doing so, he has furthermore made himself a harbinger of what's to come, a prophet of a dark ruin. And whether he's there for it or not, that ruin will come. And again. 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 And again.
And every night I lay awake and I find no conclusion. 'Cause every night it just stays the same in my dream of an absolution.